After an insanely busy weekend, I finally got a chance to work on my 124 project again. Now it's worth noting here that there's early and late version of these torsion bushings on the 124. The early version doesn't have a fabric insert, and it's perfectly okay to use rubber grease, as I'm doing here, to aid in the installation of the bushings. The later version cannot have grease applied to it because it destroys the fabric lining inside the bushings. This is applicable to genuine MB bushings. These are a Lemforda brand. They are new stock, and yet they do not have fabric inserts. So obviously they don't care about such things. The reason for the fabric inserts was to address noise complaints when the cars were new, and the cut-in is sometime in 1991. So if you have a late 124, you will have the late style bushings, and greasing them is ill-advised. So this is just me getting the torsion bar ready for installation to the car. The bolts for these brackets to the actual underside of the car are tightened to 60 Newton meters. There's something extremely enjoyable about making sure all of my bolts are torqued to factory specification. If you don't have a torque wrench, it's not the end of the world. It's just reasonably tight. But there's something very, very enjoyable about that click. It's also worth noting that these brackets are handed. There is a left and a right side. Unfortunately, as expected, I didn't remember which way they went and installed them the wrong way around to begin with. I didn't show that part, but this is the correct way they are now. Otherwise the bar does not fit in there. I found that having the clamping piece for the bracket already attached at the top loosely greatly assisted with the installation of the torsion bar, because you can, just like this, swing it down, even doing this by yourself, and just put the bolt through the hole and loosely tighten it by hand. And then you can get onto the other side and finally torque it all up to spec. All of these self-locking nuts are supposed to be replaced anytime that they are taken off. With this kit, it came with all new self-locking nuts and the washers as well. And the torque on these smaller 13mm nuts is just 20 Newton meters. It's really not much, and because you're crushing down on rubber, I did go back and check everything once again, and there was, even after torquing it to spec, the ability to torque it down again, because obviously the rubber crushed a bit more just sitting there. So I might actually, for a third time, go and check the torques on all of these nuts a bit later, just to make sure it's exactly as the 124 gods intended. Now I have my rattle gun set to the lowest setting. I'm only using it to run the nuts down. I'm not using it to do the final tightening. Everything here has been done with a torque wrench to specification, just the way I like it. And there we have it. That's all I have time for today. And as mentioned earlier, I will go back and check the torques on all of these nuts a third time, just because I think that rubber might crush a bit more, and it's never a bad idea to be sure about everything. So that's it for today. I'm done.